The following program contains views that are not those of WVTC, iNetworks Communications, their subsidiaries, affiliates, or financial supporters.
Hello, and thank you guys for tuning in to Heavenly Sent People You Should Know. I have the pleasure of being live and personal with Miss Barbara Deere and Commissioner Tyra Samps. And it's funny because I've seen these two women on my journey. Miss Deere, I think her sons were in Home and Square with my son. Me and her husband competed in ping pong and and it's funny because when I was seeing him, I was asking him, "You ain't got no you haven't put a table in the office yet?" And he would laugh. I met him through Jimmy, so I thank God that I was able to meet him, um, and see how impactful he has been to the community and so many others. And then Miss I can't even say it. Excuse me.
You're fine.
I met her at a panel discussion that they were having, and what took me by storm is that in every word she made mention of the youth. And so quite often on my journey and in places I've been, I don't see that often. It's more so about how people can do what they do for who they do. And so the fact that she is an advocate for youth, and then I've seen her again at Collins and she was doing the same thing. So I just thank God for that, because, with my organization, Heavenly Sent Youth, I am a youth advocate, and I understand that our kids don't have what they need. And there's really nothing that they can do about it other than people like you two to advocate for them. So thank you guys for that. And so food is medicine. And so, Miss Deere, I was in communication with your husband and his secretary to have him on my show to do this. And it's funny how the God works, because he ended up passing away. And my condolences to you and your family. I was at the funeral. He was a great man of God, a great husband and father, and so many other things. And I stopped by Miss Stamp's office one day, and I was telling her about it. I was like, "Yeah, I got the show, and I'm sad because I was supposed to have Mr. Deere on there." And she was like, "Wait a minute." I sat next to him in the office, and I was, I sat side by side with him with that. And I was like, "Okay, cool. Let me have you on." And she was like, "Say less." And then she was like, "How about if I have Miss Deere on?" I'm like, "Lovely." So thank you guys for coming on. And so with that being said, Miss Stamps, if you could just give us a little bit about who you are and what you got going on.
Sure. I'm Cook County Commissioner of the First District. Tara Stamps. My the lens in which I see the world and how I approach this new calling on my life, this new platform God has kind of just opened the door for, is through, as a woman, more specifically as a Black woman, mother, and educator. And so that's how I see the world, and that's the lens in which I approach policy at the Cook County level. I have a philosophy, a guiding philosophy for my life, and that is, if it's not rooted in truth and transformation, then Tara will likely not be a part of it, because only the truth transforms, no matter how difficult it is to face. If we want transformation in our body, in our finances, in our personal lives, in our professional lives, in our community, we have to be truthful about what it is before we can transform it. So that's just how I approach the work. I was very honored to work with the late great Dennis Deere, Commissioner Dennis Deere. The night that I was appointed, he was indeed the first person who reached me. There's a debate between Stanley Moore who called me first, but it was Brother Dennis Deere who I actually talked to first. And from the first moment that I joined the Cook County Board, he embraced me and always called me sister. As a matter of fact, he called me soror. He was a very proud member of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. I'm a very proud member of Delta Sigma Theta sorority, and those two organizations have a very special and unique relationship. And so he would call me soror. And Dennis and I shared a lot of the same values and beliefs about the power of what Cook County could do to change our communities. And so I was honored to be on the calls after he instituted food as medicine, after he got that resolution passed, after he was awarded the money. I sat in on many of the calls that was kicking off what food as medicine is. And I said to his chief of staff, Mr. Brownlee, let me know what I can do to keep his vision alive, specifically with that initiative, because it was so important to him and it's so impactful to our communities.
I love it. I think Miss Deer is having some technical difficulties, but I just wanted to be transparent with my audience, and so I know my producer is gonna fuss at me because we're supposed to be in a proper setting, but I couldn't leave the hospital, and this is the best that I can do, and so I couldn't reschedule for you guys. So hopefully they'll charge it to my head and not my heart.
It'll be everything it needs to be.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. So until Miss Deer gets on, can you tell us the initiative behind Food is Medicine?
Sure, sure. Brother Dennis Deere had quite a few very transformative initiatives, but the most recent one was food is medicine. And so, what Dennis Deere asserted is that there was a direct relationship between what our dietary practices are and the quality of our health. As many people know, he underwent a very significant operation. He had a double lung transplant. But before he was even eligible for that double lung transplant, he had to lose, I think, 80 pounds or 100 pounds. He ended up losing more than that. I think he ended up with like 110 or something
Wow.
that he lost within a year by changing his diet, by changing literally just the foods that he ate, and and implementing a a health routine, right? A workout routine that I don't believe was very terribly strenuous. I want to say it was like, walking and some other things like that. Once that happened, he um, grabbed a hold of the idea that if I can change my health outcomes this significantly just by changing what I eat, how much more impactful would it be if we shared this message of changing our whole makeup of the health of our communities if we focused in on food as medicine, the fact that what we eat, and this is what he and I both believed, and everybody knows this to be true. It's just whether we practice it or not. But everything that we eat is either helping us or hurting us. It's that simple. So it's about the choices. All of the choices are hard, but we get to choose our hard, right? So we get to choose whether we have a glass of water with a little lemon or a pop. We get to decide, oh, do I want some fresh squeezed juice without any additives or preservatives? Or do I want to drink this, infused something at the grocery store, at the corner store? So, I mean, that's what my understanding is. And I'm glad that Barbara has rejoined us. And the reason I asked Barbara to join me is because unlike a lot of elected officials, um, significant others, their spouses, I have, I personally have seen Barbara in lockstep with her husband once I came to the county board. I've seen her in community. I've seen her when we was giving food out for Thanksgiving. I've seen her be at press conferences. Like I've seen her actually be very engaged in the work that her husband had undertaken. And that's not necessarily so with a lot of spouses, right? There's not
Agree.
a
I
um, you know,
agree.
they're around, and of course they support their husband or their wives' work, but their hands are not necessarily in the mud. And I saw Barbara in the trenches. I also have it on good authority that as her husband struggled to reclaim his health and reclaim his life through making better, healthier decisions and through the surgeries and everything, she was the one really helping to keep that district office together, keeping the second district office together, and keeping his legacy live and in living color. The work in the name that he had made for himself in the community, she was so instrumental in that. And so, because that had been my experience, and because when I would be on the food as medicine calls, Barbara was already always on the food as medicine calls. I said it would be out of order for me to be on the call for talking about food and medicine and not have Barbara. So
Indeed.
that asked her to be a part of it.
Oh, thank you so much, Commissioner Stamps, and for those kind words. And thank you, Miss Cynthia, for allowing me to be on here with you all today. And I apologize. I did have some connectivity issues, but I think I got cut off. I didn't get a chance to introduce myself. But to those who are watching, I am Barbara Deer. My late husband is Commissioner Dennis Deer, who was an amazing man and was really, really big on food as medicine. He fought for everything community and was just loving and kind to all. And then for me, I just, I love community as well. And I actually do a lot of work with just eating healthy, making sure that I'm moving, and that's important. That's important, and that's why Commissioner Deer really fought like for food as medicine and passing that resolution along with so many of the commissioners and Commissioner Stamps working right alongside, with that initiative because it's so important to eat healthy in order to maintain proper health, to prevent a lot of illness and disease, and to just keep your health, going the way that it should be going. And I know for me, um, just personally, Commissioner Deer lost 100 pounds. He had to lose 100 pounds in order to have his double lung transplant.
She said that.
And yeah, so he's a true testament that discipline and eating healthy can really help you to meet some of your goals. And that was the only way, that he was able to get the surgery and be blessed with another year of life. So eating healthy, proper nutrition is just, it's really important.
Miss Dear,
Really.
can you give us can you tell us since you were there with him side by side, can you give us a visual of what his life change, his healthier life change consisted of?
Yeah, so his healthier life's change consisted of making better food choices, number one. So a lot of times in the morning, he would do like a protein shake. I always do oatmeal because oatmeal treats high cholesterol, and that's how I keep mine's normal. But he was like, "Nah, I don't really want oatmeal."
I hate
But
oatmeal.
yeah, but sometimes he would have oatmeal. So on occasion, oatmeal, but mainly he had a protein shake. And for lunch, he mainly did salads.
Wow.
And he was really big on that. Even on the food as medicine calls, he would ask people to have a salad, incorporate a salad into their diet. So salads were important to him. And sometimes he would have a piece of salmon with his salad. And then for dinner, it was usually a lean fish, like a baked or grilled salmon or a swordfish, so with vegetables. So he really increased his vegetable intake and lowered his carbs.
Wow, you helping somebody because with that being said, if he had to do it, I mean the whole family had to do
Yeah, yeah. And
it.
and yeah, it really influenced even my children to eat differently. And I have to laugh because for 10 or so more years, like I was vegan, then I changed my diet to vegetarian. And then more recently, over the past year and a half, I've become pescatarian. So
Oh,
I do have fish and some seafood, but nobody changed with my change. They were like, "Ma, I don't want to try that." But when Dennis changed, it's like they were like, "Wow!" Like everybody got on board, and it really made me feel better because I didn't have to cook as many different meals.
It only makes sense.
Yes, yes,
So,
but
Commissioner, how did that change your life? I mean, what you had to, since you were right there with him, you had to follow suit too. I mean,
Well,
you
no,
want
I didn't, not quite, but it does for me. One of the things that I love about Dennis's approach to food as medicine is that it wasn't rooted in shame. It wasn't rooted in judgment. I think sometimes when people get on a quote unquote health kick, some of their behaviors are condemning to other people who may not be doing what they're doing. And he never went about it that way. And as a matter of fact, when we would be on the call for food as medicine, it was always about choosing your hard. Like it's all hard. And you heard me say that. Like eating healthy is hard. Eating junk food is hard. Choose your hard.
mhm,
Um, and so he was always about um, changing your eating habits incrementally, like not necessarily having to just jump in and oh, okay, yesterday you had pig feet, but today you vegan. Like it wasn't like that. You know, he had people on the show to show you how to meal prep. He had
I
people
love
on the show
it.
to show you how to make better choices for your family. He had people on the show to show you like how you can start incorporating vegetables into your family's diet in a way that would be easier for them to kind of like accept and digest as a part of their new kind of eating. And everything was just about a lifestyle. It wasn't about creating a fad, it was about creating a lifestyle. Another thing that Dennis Deere was able to do with food as medicine is that he was able to get $1 million of the ARPA money to support food as medicine. So it wasn't just that he had this great idea and this great initiative. You know, the mayor says it all the time, and as a body of believers, you all know it to be true as well. And that is where where your treasure is. We know that where you spend your money is what's important to you. I don't want to jack
Yep.
up the verse, right? But because food as medicine was so important, he didn't just lobby to get a resolution passed. He also lobbied to get some money to support it. So by doing so, he was able to create a weekly program where people were coming on talking about different aspects of food as medicine. He also had days where we wouldn't even do the show. We would get together and people would walk. So he was incorporating. How do you incorporating? He was modeling how do you incorporate these lifestyle changes? Now, why is it imperative that? Now, one of the things I did do for him, because we did sit so close together, and that is my brother, and because I was wanting to support his food as medicine during the summer months and sometimes in the fall, they have a farmers market on the Daily Center Plaza. And there's a black woman who sells juices like 100%. She sells ginger shots. She sells turmeric shots. She
Oh
does all
wow.
these cold pressed juices, black woman, and all of these different kind of flavors. And she tells you the benefit, the health benefit of the juice that you might be buying. And so one day I bought a beet juice and I sat it on his desk and I bought it because it was purple, to be honest with you. It was like purplish. And everybody know he is like a omega to his heart. And so I bought it because it was like, and then I said, here's your breakfast or your lunch, but I want you to take care of yourself. And this is my contribution to food as medicine. And
Oh,
it was like, oh, he just thought that was so heartwarming. But the thing is, the little bitty changes that we can make every day in our diet will add years to our lives. One of the other issues that we were attacking in food as medicine was not just our own independent choices. It was also the fact that many Black people live in communities that are food deserts. That is by design. Many of our children, which is if I had a very specific commitment to food as medicine, it's addressing childhood childhood nutrition. And the reason is to address childhood nutrition because children do not have a choice. Children feed what you put in front of them. Children get and eat what is accessible to them. So if that's the corner store, the gas station that's selling Takis, which are toxic, and flaming hots, which are toxic, which the capsaicin in it can irritate the stomach. They use a lot of red dyes that is really not good for our children. It causes ADHD. There are so many additives that they put in the food that our children eat on a daily basis that negatively impacts their ability to learn.
Wow.
And you go on to talk about the access to fresh water. Our children are in school systems where the lids have not been changed. Our children can be ingesting lead, and you put that on top of the diet, and then you put that on top of if my mama worked 2 or 3 jobs or whatever. Many of our babies are not growing up in households where the parents are preparing food. Many of our children are growing up in households where they are being self-sufficient. That is not a judgment. Okay, that is just pointing the reality, but it's
Yeah.
pointing out reality so that we see what the long-term effects is on that, right? I was reading something not long ago, and it was talking about even the encasement when you make popcorn in a microwave, that the bag that the popcorn is actually in, how toxic that is, like the wrapping, what you're ingesting. um, and so when our babies have they dollar 50 cent, and they're trying to make budgetary decisions, nutritional budgetary decisions, because that's what they're making when they're trying to stretch that dollar or that $1.50 because they're hungry, and they're buying chips or they buying blue juices, and they're buying all of this stuff that's unhealthy that's being sold in our communities. That is not their responsibility. And then to add insult to injury, you have companies like Aramac, and I'm going to name them, and they're the same company who will serve prisons, and they're also the same company, if they have not been gotten fired from other systems, other prison systems, they have held contracts. Aramac has held contracts with the penal system and with schools. And so I grew up in a time when I was in elementary school where there was the lunchroom lady. You had people that actually cooked food. Our children are growing up with people who don't cook the food. They just there to warm up the food. And most of the food is nutritionally insufficient. Not only is it nutritionally insufficient, we know that you eat with your eyes first. And so the food is disgusting to look at. They expect our babies to eat it. And when our babies don't eat that, they just give them sugar, sugar, sugar. So that might be the graham crackers with the peanut butter and jelly because the baby don't want to eat this nasty looking pizza or this nasty looking other meal that y'all done threw together. And if we would simply change and go back, I assert, so let me put that, I assert that if we ch- changed back to having people in the lunchroom that actually cook the food, we would do so many things. We would employ people, so we would be providing good union jobs to people who work in the kitchen. Second, the children will be getting meals that are hot when they're supposed to be hot, cold when they're supposed to be cold, and nutritionally sufficient. Thirdly, it would improve their overall nutrition, thereby reducing childhood obesity, childhood diabetes, asthma, and so many other conditions that are impacted based on what children are and are not eating. And the school system would save money because I've been in schools, I taught in schools for 2 decades plus, and children don't eat that food. They are throwing that food away by the trayfuls. So we're wasting money. Our children are not eating. It's impacting their ability to take in information, to learn properly, is impacting their overall health, because we are living in a situation right now in this country where we got children who are suffering with childhood diabetes. We got children who have high blood pressure. We got children who are having high cholesterol. Those three health outcomes are specifically tied to nutrition.
Wow. And you know what? I'm glad you said that, Commissioner, because I did program over at Sherman Park District. And so, like you just said, I would ask the kids, what you guys eat today? And they'd say I'm sorry, Takis and candy. And I was just blown away because, like you said, and it's not their fault. And so I was telling them, I'm so happy to see Dion on here. I was telling them, like, I got a friend named Dion who provides healthy foods for families. And they couldn't believe it. And they kept asking me, is he white? Is he white? I'm like, no, he's not. He's a black man that grew up in the same community as you guys did and wanted different. And so he came and did a presentation and talked to the kids about the different fruit. And even to this day, the kids still ask me about them because they like, we go to the store and that food look, the fruit look old. We don't have good fruit. And they're right. So like you said, what do you do then? What do we do?
We gotta have the same kind of conversations in our community around food and nutrition as we do guns, as we do gangs, as we do drugs, because all of those are social determinant factors of what's happening in our community specifically. So we really have to take bold steps and demand more, because not eating well has so many far-reaching negative implications, and it's a thing. It's a small thing with a humongous impact, and it's not even a small thing. It's a huge thing with a huge impact, right? And far-reaching implications. But I think that Black people specifically got to approach food differently. And we only can do that if we start having truthful conversations about what we're eating, our access to it, why our access to it is complicated and challenged. What is the overall impact that has on our community? And then how do we change that? I am not committed to just looking at the problem. I'm only committed, and I'm solutions based. I'm just interested in the outcome. So, and I don't, and I also am not expecting all Black people, or all Black mothers, or all of everybody to have this conversation. I believe if we start having 10% of anybody do the same thing, we can make a sea change. If you make a 20%, then you didn't change the game altogether. That's whether we are talking about buying back our community. That's where you're talking about Black finances and what it means to save our dollars. Whether you're talking about Black nutrition, or what does it mean to be living a food desert and demand more of the communities that you live in, whether that means that we really hold CPS accountable to what our children are eating. If you got 10% of the families to hold people accountable, you can change 80% of what we see happening.
So where does the Miss Deer, Commissioner, where do these conversations come up about? I mean, where are these conversations being held at?
I think they need to be held a little bit more in the schools, at the doctor's offices, in the community in general. Like Commissioner Stamp said, it's those little changes that we need to make, and people need to be aware of how food impacts health. So I just, starting that conversation everywhere makes a big difference. I also wanted to add on to something Commissioner Stamp said. I remember even being a little girl in the school system, we did have real cooks that cooked. I mean, we had greens for lunch, we had beets, and I love beets. Like, people really cooked. It wasn't just things that were brought in. So I think bringing some of that back would be a big help to health and nutrition overall.
So who's the person that oversees or responsible for the food that these kids are eating at schools?
That's
Who's that person?
I, and that's Chicago Public Schools, and ultimately that's procurement. And that decision finally gets made by Pedro, the CEO of CPS. He's the one that
Wow.
makes. What I'm asserting is you got Black parents, Black and brown parents that sit on LSCs. You got people that are in the community. They see what's happening in this lunchroom, and they need to take their rightful place and demand more. I just believe this is the season to
Wow.
demand more. And if you had young people going on food strikes and like, we have to activate our children so that they too know that they can change the situations they're in. One of the ladies that actually wrote me a letter when I ran for public office the first time is named June Davis. She lives in the 37th ward, but she was the clerk at my elementary school, Franklin Fine Arts Center. And at that time, they did have people that cooked, but there was something that I didn't like about the food. And so I decided I was going to start a food campaign. And she reminded me of that in seventh grade, I had a food strike. Like, we had a whole thing. I had circulated petitions and everything. Um,
Wow.
And so we refused to eat until they improved the food conditions. And what I'm saying now is I'm all about empowering our young people to make decisions, because at the end of the day, if those babies don't go to school, and if those parents don't trust to send their children to that school, as a teacher, as a teacher's assistant, as a principal, I'm out of work. The only reason that we are able to get a paycheck every 2 weeks is because there are parents who are trusting us with their children. If the
Wow.
parents are not going to trust us with their children, then we don't get a paycheck. And so that is the currency that parents have. That is the power that parents have. And so parents have to be empowered to make decisions, long-term decisions that's going to impact the quality of life and the quality of education that their babies are having. And that same activism can be felt in the community. What would it look like if you had 10 mothers or 10 fathers or 10 whoever to go to the local dollar, a gas station, and say, listen, we can't stop you from selling whatever you're selling, but we can't ask you that you don't sell this before 8:30, before our children are in school. Like, you are not selling this to our babies. Hey, our kids are school. Our kids are late. What would it look like for us to take on that kind of activism? What would it look like for us to
Wow.
go into our communities and say, listen, we want this kind of store, not this kind of store. We want a Living Fresh, which is fresh fruit and vegetables that's Black owned and not a Save a Lot. What would that look like? And so what I'm saying is, the people who is closest to the problem are closest to the solution. And we have to empower them to open their mouth, to stand up and to get activated. Unfortunately, too many people waiting for somebody else to do it. Nobody else is coming. And what I know as a mom, and I know you know this as a mother, and I know Barbara Dear know this as a mother, we will do for our children what we won't even do for ourselves.
Yes, ma'am.
That's true.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so what I ask people is, how far are you willing to go for your children? Not yourself. If you knew that if your baby got up, and that was a tenet, that was one of the founding tenets of the Black Panther Party, to make sure that children had breakfast in the morning.
Hmm.
uh Free breakfast came out of the Black Panther Party. That wasn't nothing that the federal government came up with on its own.
Wow.
Free
Yeah.
breakfast started as one of the tenets to the Black Panther Party. And the Black Panther Party and members of the Black Panther Party would feed our children before they went to school in the morning. I know this not only because of history, but also, my mother was a member of the Black Panther Party, and she ran the free breakfast program at Cabrini Green for years. And so the very early stages of it, back in 1966 and 67, before the chairman was killed. And then the people at CHA and other residents took the free breakfast program over. I know there are young people right now, and they youngish, they like 33, 35. And one of the things they remember from their childhood is like, you remember the free breakfast.
Wow.
Like, food is more than food. Food is love. Food is a love language. We
Yes.
communicate how we feel about people through food. We know that food makes us feel better. That's why you got
Wait a minute. Food is a love language? That's deep. Okay. I
you know,
missed that.
yeah,
Mm.
food is a love language. When you really like, oh my God, when your big mama used to say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, right? So that's
One.
food. Like, you cook a good meal for that man. Oh my God, right? We
Makes
know that.
sense.
Yeah.
And so much of how we feel about ourselves and how we feel about our loved ones is conveyed through how we feed them. I mean, take for example, do you feel the love more
I think she froze.
we're gonna
Yeah.
have
I
dinner?
think she.
I think we got it.
Okay.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's all I'm trying to convey. And I mean, that's the focus with regard to our children. But in our communities, we're suffering from the same thing. And Brother Dennis Deere was on top of that. I don't know if you all know, but if you don't know, please go over, and Barbara can talk more about this. There's a whole farm in Lawndale that's open to the public, that belong to the people. Now, it's a
I
part of
didn't
the
know that.
it's a part of the Botanic Garden. It's a part of the Botanic Garden, which is also owned by the Forest Preserve, which is Cook County. But they have an entire farm in Lawndale.
My mother
Fresh,
lives in India. I didn't know about that.
fresh vegetables. And so maybe Barbara want to talk more about that.
Well, Commissioner Stamps, I'll let you give us the details about that one.
It's a fresh farm. It's owned
Wait
like
a minute, Ms. Commissioner. So everything you saying is resonating my spirit because my son comes home from school every day hungry, and I'm like, why don't you eat at school? He's like, Mom, you see the stuff they serve? I'm not eating that stuff.
let me tell you something. And this is just a suggestion. I hate to say I'm telling L Doug something, but let me share this with you. Let me offer this with you. How old is your son?
16.
My sons were in high school and I was still making their lunches. I went back to making their lunches. Why? Because the food that they were given was insufficient. My sons were athletes. They were hungry all the time and they were growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that not only was I going to provide healthy stuff, I was going to provide enough of it. So I would put little messages in there for my son. So
Mhm.
my eldest son came home one day and he said, "Mama, I was at lunch and my teammate said, 'Your mama's still making you lunches?'" And he was like, "Yeah, she extra, I know." And he wish my mama would make me, because baby, those lunches would be packed to the gills. They would have everything they needed, and they would have an afternoon snack. They would have and it was cheaper than whatever I needed to pay for the school at the school.
Yeah,
So that's the other thing about food as medicine. When we learn to shop differently, when we learn to prep differently, there is a financial cost savings to eating better once you learn how to do it. I remember,
exactly.
like Barbara, did you ever go? Because I know you said you've had several different like food programs you were on, but you want to do? Did you do any meal prep?
I did. Sometimes I would just try to prep for the week, but sometimes what I find is when I try to prep for the week, my children and they, Dennis and I would always eat leftovers, but my children did not always like to eat leftovers. So a lot of times, if I cook, it might be for 1 or 2 days, and then I would just cook another meal, but we had staples. So I would cook rice and make some beans at the beginning of the week. Fish I could make every so many days, or chicken if that I would make what they wanted to eat. Um, and other things were in keeping it simple too, like fruit as a snack and granola bars as a snack and having oatmeal or things like that. So that was kind of my way of prepping. I think, oh, yeah, that was kind of my way of prepping
I love
things.
it. I'm gonna take a break and show this video. So for all that's out there, I have a youth organization called Heavenly Sent Youth, and so what I do is I expose kids to different things outside of neighborhoods and communities. And so I got this thing. Whereas I say it's hard for a kid to dream what they can't see, right? And like you guys are make mentioning, with all the different food programs, and I had no idea that there was a farm right in North Lundale, and I've been in North Lundale all my life, and so I can't wait, for you guys to share that. And so we do mentoring, we do any and everything that you could possibly think of, trying to get the kids, trying to direct their brains to do something positive because you know they got this narrative that all of our black and brown kids are bad, and so I'm here to say that there aren't because I'm dealing with a bunch of them. And so I took on this initiative during the pandemic. I went and bought a horse, right, a real live
Oh,
horse. And yeah, and people like, you bought a horse?
amazing.
Yes, I bought a horse. I knew nothing about it. Named the horse Chance. He gave me a chance, I gave him a chance. And during the pandemic, when we were in COVID, we were out there at the barn learning, and so much so someone reached out to me and was like, "Hey, can we get you guys a commercial?" And so here it is. My name is Cynthia Manuel. I was born in Chicago, and I am proud to be able to raise my son in Chicago. I work with inner city youth to show them different things outside of their neighborhoods. When these kids walk onto the farm, it makes them feel like they are free. I want these kids to know how to give back, and recycling is one of those ways. Right? How cute, right?
Wow, that's awesome.
And so every Saturday I take the kids out there, and so now I'm working on this gaming truck. We were gifted a trailer, a mobile home, and we're converting it into a gaming truck because it's about to get cold, and so I want the kids to have somewhere safe and outside of the norm to just be free. And so I'm just so grateful for all the opportunities that I've been presented with. And so yeah, it's an amazing journey because again, you guys know what's going on out here in the world, and so to get a kid and take them outside their comfort zone, I see brand new kids. You know what I'm saying? And so it's just breathtaking. It's just warm and it warms my spirit because I don't want the kids to grow up and see what I had to see growing up in North Lawndale, so on and so forth. So, with that
Yeah,
being
that is awesome. That is so awesome because it's like you're giving children that are in North Lawndale or different communities the opportunity to get outside of their community. And some people really they don't get outside of their own community to
correct.
learn about other things that are happening or especially how to take care of a horse. Like I'm excited about that. Oh my
So
gosh. I
when
want
you
to go
mentioned
one weekend.
Please, please. And then when you mention farm, it's like, oh wow, because there's a garden out there, and so I'm actually in the process of trying to uh, grow my own fruit and vegetables, and so my sister is doing it, and we was just talking about, hey, let's go one Saturday, let's go find a community garden and pick some stuff, and then go home and cook it. And so when I heard commissioner say that there's a farm, I'm like, really? So
Yeah.
where's this farm? Where's this place?
So, yeah, that's why I was asking Commissioner Stamps. So, I instantly started thinking about the grocery store Farm on Ogden, which is on Ogden. So, I have to see if that's what she's talking about, where they have a lot of fresh produce and they're producing things and growing things in there as well. So, I'm thinking maybe that's what she's talking about, but we can double check with her
You
to
know what?
see.
now now that you mentioned, I just thought about it. So my mom goes to a cooking class over there. So I was so excited and so happy that she was getting out, doing something different. And the fact that they offer cooking classes in the community, and so that was pretty cool. It looks like someone is saying, Miss Thomas says there are lots of neighborhood gardens in North Lawndale. Okay.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
mm,
I I'm starting to find out about a lot more of them. There's a walking club that I joined on Saturday. I think it's Move Lundale. And we actually walk through some community gardens. So as you walk around and like tour the community, you really get to see a lot of gardens and hidden gems in the community that you may not have seen ever. So, but thank you to Miss Teresa. Yes, there are a lot of community gardens in Lundale.
So you know what, Miss Dear, there's a lot of constituents in our neighborhoods, in our community, and so you got the what is it, the alderman, you got the commissioner, and so on and so forth. Can you give us a short overview of what a commissioner job entails?
So a commissioner for Cook County commissioners, they actually appropriate, they help to make laws, and
Oh,
they investigate. They investigate. So, dealing with funds, investigating things that may be going on in Cook County, and then making laws. For example, like with Commissioner Dennis Deere proposing Food is Medicine initiative. So, getting those types of things in place to affect the community and
wow.
to bring resources in the community is what they do. So,
So how
yeah.
does that tie into the Cook County building? Because I know he had some part in that. I would see that on TV and I would see news articles. How does that align with the commissioner?
So in terms of what he would do at the Cook County building,
Yeah, I mean the Cook County
yeah.
Hospital, the new development.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. He was the chair of health and hospitals.
Oh wow,
So yeah, so he's on that board helping to make a lot of decisions around health,
nice.
and those were things that were really dear and important to him, with his own health battle, with community health, community eating. So he had a chance to really have a voice and make a difference there.
That was so cool. How are your sons
They're doing
in regards to the health, the health portion of the initiative?
Yeah, they're doing good. So my twins are 22 years old, and when it comes to health, they have made a lot of changes with eating differently. So I enjoy seeing them sometimes, well, they often eat and cook
Okay.
fish and salmon, and they'll barbecue and, have chicken and not as many fried foods
I
as they would
love
have had in the past. They're starting to try like some green teas,
it.
matcha, and eating more fruits and vegetables. So they're coming along, and my daughter too,
I love it.
they will try things, and they definitely eat fruits and vegetables. So I'm excited for that.
I love it. Well, I'm not going to hold you. I thank you so much for your time. I would love to connect with you further on some other initiatives, because this is helping myself. I'm on this journey to change my diet and um, to hear the fact that you said Dennis lost 100 pounds. I'm like,
Wonderful.
OMG. And I have people I know people that's struggling to lose 5 and 10, including myself. So
Yeah,
that's why I wanted you to tell, just to make mention of what his diet consisted of, I'm sorry, in regards to, and it makes sense. And so, like Commissioner said, the choice is yours. You can either drink water or you can drink this pop. You know what I'm saying? So, we got to,
exactly.
when you know better, you do better, right?
Exactly. That's the key. And he often talked about his issues with Snickers, like that was his favorite candy, and he would have so many of them hidden in different places, but he got to a point where he was like, I'm going to have this bag of Snickers right here, but it takes discipline to change your mindset and set goals and stick to them. But he would not touch those Snickers.
Wow.
He did
I
not
love
touch
it.
those Snickers like that. To me, that was willpower.
Indeed.
And I will share too that he, even with the Food is Medicine initiative, they would have people come over and walk so many times. And even at home, like he had gotten to the point where he was walking like a mile a day in the
Wow.
mornings. So he was like getting that movement in, it doesn't, even if somebody walks for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, it's like every little thing helps, you know. I think the key is to have that mindset, to have that discipline, to set goals and just to keep going. So he's a true
Indeed.
testament to that.
I love it. This has helped me. And the fact that you said he had the sneaker bag right in his face and he didn't touch it. I
Yeah.
like that. And so I got to do better. So again, I thank you so much for your time. I'm praying for you. I ask that you, keep me in prayer, with my son and, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you.
I surely will. And thank you for your prayers. I will keep you in prayer as well. We all need prayers. We're,
Mhm.
thank God for prayers and for those who pray for us and one another, because we know He's faithful and He keeps us.
With that being said, good night. Be safe. Stay blessed.
Good night.
All right.
Go to your Apple or Google Play Store and download the WVTC Gospel Radio app today. You can also say, Alexa, play WVTC Radio Skills.
Would you like to play WVTC Radio Network?
Absolutely. Download it today.
Views made on the preceding program are not those of WVTC Radio, iNetworks Communications, or their financial supporters.
Winning victory through Christ. WBTC Allsip Chicago. An iNetworks communication station.